and welcome to the Walla Walla City Council Candidates Forum. This is being hosted by the Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce. And at this time, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the City of Walla Walla and Columbia REA, for making this event possible. I really appreciate everybody's interest, so thank you for coming out on such a rainy night. Appreciate you being here. Also, thank you to our candidates for braving the public to come out and giving you the opportunity to get to know them. I want to take care of a few housekeeping items just real quickly. I'd like to first go over some rules for the candidates so everybody gets an idea of how this is going to work. So my wife is going to be the timer. She's got a little yellow card down there, and when we're going to give you about 2 minutes to answer a question, and then at 30 seconds left, she's going to hold that up to let you know to start wrapping up your thought, and then when you hit time, she's going to flip that around and say, okay, it's time to go ahead and finish your thought and give somebody else another opportunity to speak. Rules for the audience. I'm hoping that this conversation will spark some thoughts and get you to ask some questions as well. So if you have a question that you really want to get an answer to, raise your hand and be recognized. You'll have just a brief moment to stand where you are, ask your question, and then we'll let the candidates who feel like they've got a good answer for you to answer that question. We ask that you don't make it a run-on thing or try to make a political point. Just ask a question. Try to be concise because we try to get out of here at 7 o'clock. Okay? We want to be respectful of everybody's time. The reason why we chose a forum versus a debate is we want this to be a friendly conversation. My personal feeling is that with the political atmosphere being so divisive these days, it'd be nice to hear and have a dialogue versus an argument. So that's my intent with the forum tonight. I would like to go ahead now and recognize that Charter is recording this, so you will be able to watch this in replay at Charter Cable Channel 190, and it will also be uploaded to YouTube. She said sometime next week, but it'll be in the 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock p.m. time frames, so keep an eye out. If you want to look it up on YouTube, you can do a YouTube search for Charter Channel 190 Walla Walla, and you'll be able to find the video replay. Okay, so let's meet our candidates. First up is Mr. Jim Barrow. He's the incumbent. Let's go ahead and give you just a brief example, or tell us a really short bio. Take like 30, 40 seconds. Tell a little bit about yourself and your experience.
I'm not sure I can say my name in 30 or 40 seconds. Jim Barrow, I'm on your city council and have had the honor of serving for the last 10 years and been in the city about 26 years with my family. Enjoy what I'm doing, which is why I'm trying to do it again. And I can only say that I hope to demonstrate, our newspaper notwithstanding, that even older people can have new ideas. All
right, thank you. All right, our next candidate running for the same position is Riley Clubb.
We're all standing?
Sure.
All right, great. I'm Riley Clubb. I'm a sixth-generation Walla Wallan. Raised by two of the best business leaders I've ever met in a family of entrepreneurs, and have a lot of experience in the wine industry, the banking industry. I've started my own business and very recently decided that I wanted to focus on improving government, not just what we're doing, but also how we do it, increasing our ability to represent using new technologies to communicate and engage with constituents, and that's basically my bio.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Yasmin Baena. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did.
Very good.
Hi, buenas tardes. Good afternoon. My name is Yasmin Baena. I am a kindergarten teacher at Edison. This is my 7th year teaching, and I was born and raised in Walla Walla. I live here with my husband and my beautiful dog, and my family lives about 4 blocks away from me.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Mary Lee McQuarrie.
Hi, I'm Marilee. I am a native Utahn. I've lived here in Walla Walla for 18 years since my husband and I got married 18 years ago. I have previous experience on the city council in a small town next to Logan, Utah, River Heights City. I was over the Parks and Recreation, and I created and ran a little league. I'm excited about this campaign. I'm excited about the possibility of winning the election and being on the city council and the good things that we can do for Walla Walla.
Thank you. Next up is Devin Wooten.
Thanks. My name is Devin Wooten. I too want to thank all our candidates here. Thank you all, and thank the Chamber this evening. My wife, Nicole, and I moved here about 6 years ago. I know that doesn't seem like a long time, but it's the longest I've lived anywhere since I was 18. I counted about a dozen moves between 18 and 30. I got my BA from the University of North Texas in International Relations. I got my master's from the University of Montana, Missoula, and I got my PhD, or I'm actually defending my dissertation this month at the University of Iowa. I don't want to jinx it. I'm defending my dissertation at the University of Iowa later this month. I'm excited at the opportunity to put down roots for the first time in a long time, and I'm excited to give back to this community. I look forward to potentially serving on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Myron Huey.
Hi, I'm Myron Huey. Glad that you're all here this evening. I'm 64 years old, in case you didn't know that. People have asked me if I've lived here all my life. My answer is not yet. I used to own Huey's Furniture and Appliance in Walla Walla, ran that for quite a number of years. Then I went to work as a supervisor at Home Depot. I'm currently a human resource manager for a regional transportation company headquartered out of Walla Walla. Very interested in the issues and the concerns that face the city of Walla Walla and how we can make sure that the citizens of Walla Walla are getting the best return on the value of taxes that are being sent to them from you, the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, since this is our event, I'm going to take the executive's prerogative and ask the first question. Name 3 of your highest priorities you would like to see happen if you get elected to City Council. And not everybody has to answer, so if you have a strong opinion, jump up.
At least get it started. I would say 3 things that I would hope, if reelected to City Council, would be: number 1, continue largely what we're doing, improving what we're doing, which is improving the way things have been in many, many years past. Whether we're talking about economic development, small businesses, whether we're talking about tourism, whether we're talking about some of the challenging issues of our society as a whole, such as homelessness. I think the City Council and the city staff and our citizens have been remarkably supportive of each other and of the direction this city is going, and it's pretty exciting and pretty positive. I would hope to be able to continue that effort, and I believe that, again, my favorite target, our newspaper. Where are you, Brian? There you are. If that represents the status quo, I would like to think the status quo is pretty good. Not perfect, and it can be improved. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, I think the status quo is pretty good for many people. Not as good for some people. My 3 priorities, I'll also start with the number 1 thing, is make housing more affordable. And that's something that I've heard in almost every conversation I've had with people that I've been meeting over the last several months. It's just the difficulty of finding an affordable home in Walla Walla. I think the key to doing that is we have to increase supply. Demand has gone up. We have to get out of the way of developers who want to build supply. We need to look at our zoning restrictions, look at our property size regulations, density regulations, and make sure that we are increasing and keeping up with demand with our housing supply. That will make it much more affordable to live in Walla Walla. Number 2 is support local business owners and entrepreneurs and support a more diverse economic growth in Walla Walla. My family has a winery. I've been very close to the tourism, the boom that's happened here from wine, and it's been really great. But I do worry that we're putting all of our eggs in one basket. And I think it's a good idea to diversify and to try and support business owners, especially who have business ideas in other sectors, but we have to help support that. We could start an incubator for businesses that aren't a winery, for example. We could have local funding mechanisms, crowdfunding, microloans. We can make it much easier for small business owners rather than creating new taxes, having a copy and paste mentality about regulations. I think we can be doing a much better job for business owners. And then third, my family, we make our livelihood off of agriculture, like a lot of people here. And I think protecting our natural resources, protecting our agricultural climate is extremely important. I'd like to see us doing more to invest in renewable energy, energy efficiency. There are lots of ways we can cut our carbon emissions and actually save money, balance our budget. And so those are my 3 priorities.
Thank you.
Kind of going off of Riley, but my number 1 priority overall is bridging the gaps. And that just means increasing civic engagement from all people. How do we involve and how do we encourage people and kids and students? And since I'm a teacher, I normally say kids a lot. So how do we encourage everybody to be proactive and be active in this community? That's my number 1 priority. How do we encourage movement and ongoing forward? And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for city council. I want to advocate, and I want to be able to show that yes, you can. And off of that, number 2 is my affordable. Also, we need to be able to afford affordable housing for all. How does that look like? Working class, higher class, and then just working class citizens that need that work 2 jobs and need to own a home. And so that way, when kids come to our classrooms, they are ready to learn and they're not worried about if they don't have a home to go to. Third of all, economic growth, the development for everybody, different jobs in everybody's community. So how does that look like? With education, we have a great education system here with all the universities around us, with winery, with nursing. We have a great nursing program that produces a lot of nurses, and they're amazing. So what else can we justify so people can work with? So those are my 3 priorities.
Thank you.
We're going down the line again.
Sure.
Okay. So my 3 top priorities are affordable housing. That's the top one. Working on zoning restructuring, getting housing affordability for people who are in low income, starter homes, duplexes, apartments, whatever it takes to get more affordable housing in Walla Walla. The second one is to continue to improve our infrastructure, roads, sewer, water, safety, all of those things that are part of the infrastructure. And then my third one is something a little bit different and maybe off the wall, but I would like to see us go into the future with some solar-powered electric plugs or different things. I would like to see more solar power in our city, and that would include, we have the Walla Walla Community College, which is a great resource. They have this water and environmental research center, and outside of that they've got this wonderful carport that is solar powered, and it has electric plugs for recharging electric cars. That's going to be a futuristic thing. Eventually we're all going to be relying on electric cars, and I just think that we need to move into the future, and I think that's a good idea. And I would like to see the community work together with the community college on something like that.
It's heartening to see that many of us are on the same page on affordable housing, on dealing with homelessness as a structural issue rather than focusing on those individuals who happen to be homeless. I want to add to this conversation what many of us have been thinking about and talking about for months now, which is wards. I see wards as an opportunity to make our electoral system more representative, not simply diversity for diversity's sake, but to think about the divisions that exist in our community right now and be responsive to those communities that have differing needs, whether they're geographical divides, whether they're racial divides, whether they're economic divides. So thinking hard about how we respond to the differing populations in our community is something that I think I would like to hear questions from you, but also responses from our candidates.
Very good. Thank you.
Number 1 priority, infrastructure, specifically bridges and streets. Right now in the city of Walla Walla, we've got 3 bridges that are in dire need of help. One of them they've actually closed off because the bricks underneath it that hold it up are actually falling into the river. Another bridge, a very, very well-traveled bridge, we constantly have traffic going over it that's far in excess of the engineered design limits on that bridge based on its current condition. This is a very expensive process, but it must be dealt with, or we're going to be facing some significant detours that are long-term. Number 2, housing. Supply and demand, let's face it, the supply is far lower than the demand. We need to be able to work with a comprehensive plan. We need to work with the county. We've got to join together to figure out how we can reduce the size of housing lots so we can get down to maybe an R50 lot, which makes it more affordable to build on than if we're doing the big ones. Number 3, ambulance service. The city of Walla Walla is facing a crisis with the ambulance. Right now, going into next year, the budget says that we're going to be $400,000 in deficit to fund the most minimal amount of ambulance service. There are some answers for it, but they're going to require some really tough answers by the council, and it's going to involve how we take a look at how we do ambulance service to outlying jurisdictions.
Very good. Any pressing questions? If not, I've got another one that's a follow-up to the topic that he just raised. All right, so some folks from the public submitted questions. I'm going to read one of them here, okay? And this one has some background related to what he was just talking about. The City of Walla Walla's ambulance service costs taxpayers about $4.5 million per year. Each year, the expenses and unpaid debts are increasing. Changes in Medicaid and Medicare may increase significantly next year. The Walla Walla County EMS levy contributes about $1.2 million, but the rest of the expense is paid by the City of Walla Walla property owners. Patients outside the city are increasingly not paying for emergency services. In 2015, the unpaid bills from these jurisdictions was collectively around the $400,000 that you mentioned, and the city has been unsuccessfully trying to collect on these debts for the last 2 years. What would you recommend the city council do about this?
The mic was closest to me. Here we go. About 4 weeks ago, I got to visit with an individual who lives in the city of College Place. She needed ambulance service. College Place has what is called BLS, Basic Life Support Ambulance. They came, they realized that she was in a situation that required hospitalization. They immediately called the City of Walla Walla, who has ALS, Advanced Life Support. City of Walla Walla was told to transport this individual to the hospital, and then the hospital said, this person needs to get the Cadillac in Richland. City of College Place resident didn't pay 1 cent for that. It was paid for by the City of Walla Walla. College Place said, it's on you, it's not on us. Right now, we know that the City of College Place as a jurisdiction and District 4 as a jurisdiction are not contributing to ambulance service by Walla Walla. As a matter of fact, District 4 has gone so far as to say that you're running a Cadillac service. Well, if that's the case, maybe District 4 should take their BLS service and go ahead and transport them to the hospital, and the burden would be on them. Right now, Walla Walla City citizens are paying for all the jurisdictions. That has to come to a stop.
Okay, let me refresh the question. What do you propose the city do about it?
Yeah, and I'll try to respond more directly to that. While it seems clear there's an issue at hand, it seems that, I mean, we could speak to the city attorney more directly, but once we provide a service, it seems difficult to take it away. I'd like to think about annexation in terms of this. It seems a possibility to actually include parts of the city that are not currently paying for ambulance service in the city plan. And without a more background as to how we've tried to collect that, I think we have to push for those collections. It doesn't seem fair to the people of Walla Walla to actually pay for others to take advantage of a service that they're not directly paying for. So both including them more directly in the conversation of annexation, but also pushing for more payment.
Okay. Thank you.
All of us again?
Anybody, you don't have to. If you feel like if you got a strong opinion on it, feel free to share your ideas. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
No. I believe that if we have an interlocal agreement with College Place and with the rest of the county, that it will make it easier to collect these funds and that there will be more participation in these funds. Walla Walla County is a large county, and having that interlocal agreement for the support for ALS and for anything where we're working together is very, very important, and that's what I would work for.
Okay.
Thank you. I agree. We have to talk about how Walla Walla County can subsidize cost of this. We're not going to take away a service. Absolutely not. We're not going to let anybody die or if anybody needs any service. That's absolutely not a part of the question. But we also need to talk, how are we going to talk and get money, and how are we going to have it to be equitable for everybody? So that's the key, equitability for all.
Okay, I'll just build on this a little briefly. And specifically on the interlocal agreement idea, I just think it's really sad that we're more or less having a conversation about whether we want to play this game of chicken over the budget when people's lives are at stake. That's what we're talking about. And what I would push for, what I think the city should do, is lobby for a consolidation of ambulance services. I mean, I think that the county should be able to take advantage of some economies of scale if everything was under one roof. So as you know, the city of Walla Walla, the largest ambulance provider in this county, we should push for that. I think that would definitely help the situation without forcing this game. But I agree with what Myron and others have said, that it's not, I don't think it's right that the city, the taxpayers of Walla Walla should have to pay for that and get paid back 50 cents on the dollar. So that's what I would push for.
Oh, thank you. This is a thorny issue, and unfortunately, annexing our way out of it, that is to say, annexing College Place or the unincorporated parts of the county, would be difficult, let's just say that, legally, politically, and practically. Secondly, just to clarify, the individual who calls for ambulance service traditionally has that ambulance service paid by one of three sources: private insurance, and we know where private insurance is going these days. Secondly, if you're indigent or low income, you very likely are on Medicaid. Medicaid reimbursements roughly are somewhere around 30-40 cents on the dollar. And last and not least, for those of us that are a little bit older, we have, of course, Medicare. And Medicare, like Medicaid, does not pay the cost of service. It pays a little less than half. So how then do we solve the problem? Well, there's basically two solutions. Number one, and Riley made an excellent point, why don't we consolidate ambulance service? For that matter, why don't we consolidate fire service? Do we need three full-blown fire departments within 2 miles of each other? District 4, which is actually physically located within College, or within the city. College Place, which is, of course, right across the street on Myra Road. And last, of course, our own fire department. Well, the answer is it would make a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it requires partners that are willing to do it. And historically, that has not worked out. Our city has tried aggressively both to have an ambulance district as well as, of course, to have some form of interlocal agreement that would result in everyone paying a fair share. And last but not least, I want to be fair to our neighbors. It's not like they're not paying anything. The EMS levy that we all pay to reimburse for some of those services that we provide. So in the end, the answer probably is, at this point in time, is withdraw that level of service outside of the residents of this city and seek other revenue sources.
Thank you. All right. Any pressing questions from the audience? Okay. If you like my questions, I'll keep going. All right. Very good. It was raised, several of you mentioned the idea of lowering the cost of housing to make it more affordable. What are your plans? But I think one of you had some specific ideas on how to make housing more affordable. I'd like to hear some other ideas from the other candidates who might be able to answer that question. So your proposals for making housing in the Walla Walla area more affordable.
In the areas since it's back at this end again, at some point we should fairly start in the middle, I suppose. Right now we are in the 10-year annual process of revisiting the comprehensive plan. As most of you know, certainly the people at the podium here are aware, the comprehensive plan dictates what the zoning is in those areas we call urban growth areas, and for that matter within the city. And our city has used the philosophy of let's zone neighborhoods with like housing. Now that can result in some beautiful housing neighborhoods, but it doesn't necessarily result in cheap housing, and that would be particularly true in the areas which are becoming urbanized around the fringes of the city that eventually or have recently been annexed in. And this county's plan, when those areas were made available to the city under the urban growth rules, require that we have that all at what's known as R96, that is to say a big lot, which presumably makes for a bigger house, certainly makes for a more expensive lot. Right now, the council is actively considering with staff modifications to the comprehensive plan, which would provide what I term mixed housing. Now, that's housing that instead of all the houses are more or less the same, they're all $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 houses, that the neighborhood would be mixed. You would have multifamily residents, you would have smaller lots, and you would have more homogenized, if you will, diverse neighborhoods. That should help bring the cost of housing down. I'm sure everybody is aware the city doesn't build houses, so we can't directly impact the cost of housing. That's a matter for the marketplace and the people who build them, and of course in the end the people that rent them or buy them.
Thank you. I think I've talked about this a lot already, but I just want to make a quick point. If it was purely just a matter of the marketplace, we wouldn't be in this problem to begin with. What we need to do is get out of the way of supply. We create barriers to development, and that ends up having an imbalance between demand and supply. So it's one thing to say, act as if we have nothing to do with this. This is what the market has created. That's not how I look at this at all. I think we need to be much more accommodative of what types of housing and the densities, especially of the housing that we have here.
Thank you. And kind of piggyback what you said, Riley, I do something about we don't have the ability to know who's going to build the houses, but we, as a city, we can build and have incentives for contractors to come in and give them incentives to be able to build and different styles of homes, different density of homes. And maybe most people maybe don't need a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom with 2 baths. So maybe they need a one with a livable space and good enough space for their dog, right? So we need to be able to provide different structures for everybody. We have different needs for all the community, and we need to be open and have that conversation. Also partnering up with BMAC, who has already systems in place and are trying to help the community to build affordable housing. So we, as a city, we also need to encourage that communication and that lifeline with BMAC and other nonprofit organizations that we have in Walla Walla. Walla Walla has one of the highest nonprofit organizations in the States. And so we need to work on those commitments and work with those that we have already in the system and that are already helping and work together as a team.
Lived in an old fixer-upper. We don't have enough. I think if we encourage development of lower income housing, we can do that by we need to make it easier. We can encourage the development by rezoning. I know from if we want apartments, then it has to be rezoned to commercial, from residential to commercial. Unless it's already zoned commercial, then apartments could be easily built there. Duplexes have to be rezoned as multifamily housing. We don't have enough of those. We do have some in Walla Walla, but we just don't have enough. I've experienced with both living in a trailer house, I've lived in a duplex, I've lived in apartments, and I've even lived in an old fixer-upper. we don't have enough homes available for low-income people. We need to make it easier, work with the zoning commission to make the process easier so that this will run more smoothly and promote the building of starter homes in Walla Walla. I would work to find lots that are already available for sale or for building on, that already have the infrastructure going to them, so that makes it less expensive to have these built onto.
I sense a theme, and the theme is zoning. I think we're all in agreement that something has to be done around zoning. This is how we decide how we want to use our space, and this is how we decide what we want our community to look like. Who has access to the space to build, who has access to livable areas. So I want to echo many of the things that have already been said, but I also want to give a plug for those existing stocks that we have now. So the education for individuals to actually get into the homes that we have now, the affordability, making them aware of the options that are there, also the opportunity to improve their credit and get into rentals. So while I think zoning is a crucial issue, this is a 5-10-year solution, a 20-year solution for zoning. So I want to bring us back to the present and say, what can we do for those people who are having trouble accessing housing right now?
I want to take off on what Devin just said. You have a lot of millennials growing up in Walla Walla right now that don't want a large home with a large lot. Yet in Walla Walla, just in the last few weeks, the City Council already went ahead and endorsed a new area, a new development, where the lot size, I believe, was R92. If we can get those lot sizes down to R50, the cost for each lot from the builder perspective is going to drop significantly, which means the cost of a home is going to go down. Areas of Walla Walla that have vacancies, in other words, empty land, use that as infill, but change the zoning to multifamily so you can place more residents in there. Millennials like that, and here's why. They don't want to upkeep a large home. They don't want to upkeep a large landscape area. They want the freedom to move around. That would save a significant amount of cost. It would reduce the demand, and therefore it would also reduce the cost.
Thank you. Go ahead and pass the mic to the center. We'll start with the ladies on this next one. Since we were talking about making housing affordable, there's another particularly thorny issue that's coming up for a vote, and that is short-term rentals or vacation rental by owners. I would like to hear the candidate's position on how to handle that.
Can I ask a follow-up question about affordable housing? A lot of the affordable housing in Walla Walla is provided by the Housing Authority. They're burning through at this point about $15 million rehabilitating some buildings they own. The big problem with affordable housing is it's really expensive.
More cost-effective to the private market.
Cheap houses,
for developing
livable houses are available in trailer parks all over this community. You can buy a really decent trailer house for $50,000. The smallest stick-built house, 1,200 square feet on a newly designed small lot, will still cost you $100,000. Where do you plan to get the subsidies to provide the money that will pay for affordable housing?
Changes to our regulations rather
Good question.
than seeking subsidies through the Housing Authority.
Anybody want to take that one?
It needs to get done.
Well, I haven't. I've been considering it more from the angle of making it more cost-effective to the private market for developing housing, and that's what I think most of us have been talking about, is that when you increase the supply. So I think one of the reasons why it's so expensive and it requires a subsidy is because land is so difficult to obtain. The price of land has gone up as a result of zoning choices. I believe that's the case. And so my preference is to make zoning changes and changes to our regulations rather than seeking subsidies through the housing authority. But however it gets done, it needs to get done.
And to answer the question directly, I agree, by the way, with Riley that zoning certainly is what is necessary to bring into the city property that can be developed for multi-purposes, including lower-cost housing. That all said, you ask what are the incentives, what can we do right now to bring money into the city? And the answer, I think, most directly is whether it's the Housing Authority or BMAC, which I'm proud to be the chair of, these organizations can and do access several tens of millions of dollars of federal and state monies to build or rehabilitate affordable housing. And that has a very precise definition what that means as affordable housing. What's affordable to perhaps you and I might not be affordable to the person that's in the trailer park that you referred to. That sometimes is a matter of economic reality or certainly in some cases choice. But there are dollars available through the State Department of Commerce for various housing programs. The problem with those dollars is they're finite. I mean, our state and our federal government, for that matter, has been tightening the belt, if you will, on those dollars that are available. And it's not just a matter of tightening the belt on the dollars, it's also a matter of coming up with a rather onerous series of regulations that have to be met to qualify to occupy one of those houses. You can't have a dog. You can't smoke. You can't use drugs, even the ones that in our state now that are legal. You can't do a variety of things, and that can be pretty difficult, whether you're trying to rent a place or whether you wish to buy a place.
I said recent because most of us came from somewhere.
Okay. Anybody else want to tackle that one? If not, I will restate my previous question, or we'll take another one. Okay, go ahead, sir.
So I want to shift the discussion, so I'm going to ask a different question and let you refer and to finish the housing question.
I would say, what's the choice of the audience? You want to hear more on housing, or shall we?
I want to shift. I want to
move on? Okay. The audience is, say, ask your question.
Okay, thank you. So, some of us have been very concerned in the city of Walla Walla regarding our neighbors, our friends, our students who happen to be recent immigrants. I say recent because most of us came from somewhere. So the question before you is, do you believe that Walla Walla Police Department and other law enforcement agencies should function as adjuncts to us? And what is it that you say to those Walla Wallans that are worried about their well-being? Some of them children.
There's nothing that says you have to comply. It's your choice. I personally feel that we should.
I could go first. I have the mic. So there was another question that I think is similar to this. That was, should Walla Walla become a sanctuary city? Currently, I believe it is required by law that cities cooperate with federal agencies around knowledge of immigration status. But the question that I've seen specifically with sanctuary cities is whether we comply with the immigration detainer requests from ICE. Right now, there is no statute, there's no law that says a city has to do that. There's nothing that says you have to comply. It's your choice. I personally feel that we should keep that choice to ourselves, and that we should be making those decisions locally rather than allowing the federal government to say who can and can't live in Walla Walla. I personally feel that the police department is doing a really great job right now to protect the city and can make those decisions themselves. I don't think that we need to go beyond that to assist with the removing more people from this community. I think our police force is already doing a good job of identifying who is a criminal and maybe who is not legally of legal status to be here. So I don't see any reason to go beyond that. And if you call that a sanctuary city, I mean, that's just a rhetorical term. It's not an actual legal status.
The kind of compassion, the kind of community, and the kind of support we want to give. I personally want to live in a community that stands for compassion. And when we think about the kind of conversations we want to have around this issue, I want compassion and empathy to inform our choices and our policies. In my discussions with Chief Bieber, he does not seem I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he does not seem interested in making people's lives more difficult. He does not seem interested in asking whether people are undocumented. So I would love to be more purposeful in our approach to this issue, to have policies that that establish the kind of compassion, the kind of community, and the kind of support we want to give every single resident in Walla Walla.
Both city and county, from everything that I have seen and heard, seems to indicate that they do not appear to have biases against any particular group, ethnic or otherwise. In all the surveys done, the City of Walla Walla Police always comes up with very good marks. I think the path that the city police are on is very good at best, because if they weren't, how come do we consistently get positive surveys year after year?
So to be fair, I did not make a claim of bias on the part of law enforcement. Right? I asked if he stopped me for a broken tail light. Should you ask me what my position is?
Survey can also be biased. Thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to look at you, Wendy. A police officer cannot ask you if you are legally resident in this country. And as a teacher and as an advocate, we need to let our residents know that they have the right to remain silent, and they don't need to answer that question. And I do believe we need to make sure our students and our kids feel safe in this community, and I will advocate that to the end. There is no need for kids to go home and be worried that if their dad is not going to be picked up, or if they're not going to be at school, they're worried that I can't go home because somebody's out there looking for me. So yes, I do believe the police force is trying their hardest, and I understand that. But at the same time, maybe some people don't report things because of safety issues. So, that survey can also be biased. So the data out there really can't tell. So as a sanctuary city, I do want us to be have empathy for everybody, understand that if I were to get pulled over, I don't need to answer that question. I shouldn't even be asked. So the police need to be trained and with a lot of professional development need to know what the right questions are to ask. And I have the right to say nothing.
They could turn them over to the federal government. Thank you, Yasmin. I couldn't agree more. The good news is this is not an issue in this city. It isn't now. It hasn't been certainly in my time, and I have no reason to think it would ever be so. Either because of the philosophy of the police that we hire, the department heads that we employ, and the philosophy of the city council. So I would say to you, I could not agree with you more. That would be an intolerable expectation that our police were going around looking for illegal aliens, undocumented aliens, so that they could turn them over to the federal government. That just hasn't happened and isn't happening, and I can't imagine it ever will in this city. So I don't believe anyone, and I agree completely with you, I don't believe anyone, regardless of their immigration status, needs to walk around the street with their hat pulled low so that they're not profiled and potentially turned over to the federal government for deportation, unless they commit crime, and I'm talking about a significant crime, not a broken tail light, in which case, like any citizen, they will be arrested, I would hope, and if they happen to be an undocumented alien, once they're finished during their jail time for their crime, then they would, of course, be subject to deportation.
We're getting good questions from the audience. Let's keep the conversation going. I know we've got, okay, go ahead.
Several of you mentioned infrastructure. And I'm sure you're aware the federal government has cut back substantially on the funding of infrastructure for roads, sewer, water, et cetera. The state has been doing the same thing, cutting back on taxes that go to local jurisdictions and the Public Works Trust Fund. Some jurisdictions have responded to this by either engaging in deferred maintenance or not including depreciation in their budget for assets. If you are elected as our city council members, what would be your position in terms of adequately funding infrastructure, including replacement costs?
Good question. Thank you.
With the exception of the Public Works Trust Fund, which unfortunately is...
They're getting harder.
You need to ask quicker. This is a near and dear to my heart issue. As chair of the city's finance committee, we wrestle with this every year. In the last several years, our city has devoted tens of millions of dollars, both our own taxpayer dollars as well as state and federal dollars, to the improvements in the roads and the sewer and the water systems, the sidewalks that most of us have certainly had the opportunity to see. There's more to be done, of course. You are absolutely correct. It's getting tougher and tougher to get those dollars. But let me tell you, in the last year alone, with the exception of the Public Works Trust Fund, which unfortunately is sitting in limbo because the legislature didn't pass the budget that included money for that, which had some $30 million for our water plant and some other projects here in the city. Hopefully we'll get those before too much longer. But in the meantime, we have been so successful with grants, so competitive with grants, because both a combination of the need and a combination of exceptional staff work that put together packages that make those needs shine in front of the agencies that award money. So we've really multiplied yours dollars and mine, that 0.2% tax that we approved a few years ago, and just in the last couple of 3 years, $20+ million.
Bridge on Palouse. If you can look at the one on Park.
I just want to echo something. I think the council is strongest when it provides vision. I think what Mr. Barrow is so accurately hit upon is the amazing staff that we have. So the way we sort of direct staff to say, we have these issues, deferred maintenance is not going to cut it. So having those talented staff and relying on those talented staff to actually find the funds that we need to make sure our infrastructure is safe.
We have several bridges in Walla Walla that actually received grant fundings for their total repair. For instance, you can look at the bridge on Palouse, you can look at the one on Park, one on Division, and I don't remember the other bridge, but those were all funded by grants.
I know we have.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
Now, we have 3 bridges right now that are in really, really bad shape. Right now, grant monies for those seem to be a little bit scarce. But I would like to suggest that 2 of those bridges are over Mill Creek. That channel is taken care of by the U.S. Corps of Engineers. And my suggestion is maybe that we partner with the Corps of Engineers to see how we can take care of 2 of those bridges, since that's partly property that they manage. In other words, bring in partners.
Go ahead, sir.
It seems as though there's some uniformity in the group about the advantage of growth. And obviously there's always an offsetting issue of environmental conditions, the state of our aquifers and all of that. Allowing that we really need to take care of those people who are here in town and make sure that people have an adequate place to live and to go home to. How big can we get?
That's a good question. How big can Walla Walla get and still support itself?
Well, as long as we have the infrastructure to do that, we can get bigger. Of course, we don't have straight line boundaries. And, I mean, no city has that. It's not really feasible. If we have the capacity to provide sewer and water and electrical to people that want to annex in, to citizens that want to be annexed in, then we can do that. How big can we get? I have no idea. I don't have all the answers. That's why I've been letting the mic go back and forth. But we can get bigger. We can provide those resources for people. Oh, and my husband and I, our subdivision was annexed in a year ago, and that's one thing that I feel like I could help people with that process of being annexed in, but people have to request it first. And I did meet a woman on Tamarzen a few days ago who said they didn't want to be annexed in because what's the benefit for that? And I said, well, your city taxes are lower than your county taxes, and they are. And you get library access too. So we can, I believe we can provide for more annexation.
Thank you.
Walla Walla has a very distinct privilege in the fact that we feed off of the watershed, and we have far more water than we're actually using. In addition to that, as that water comes down, it runs through a hydropower generator, which helps pay for the pumping of that water. So we have a very good supply of water, unlike our neighbor College Place, who is really struggling with water needs right now. And because of that, their ability to get big growth is extremely limited. Walla Walla doesn't face that issue. Walla Walla also has the distinct nature about its growth that has been very well managed. In other words, we're getting about 1% growth per year, which is ideal. You have cities like Seattle right now where their growth is so explosive that they can't begin to keep up with infrastructure needs. And because of it, they're getting tons of complaints. If we can manage that 1% growth, though, Walla Walla can continue to move forward at a predictable and charted course that will not cause infrastructure issues.
I think I just want to add something to what Mr. Hugh was saying. I think also the question is, how big do we want to be?
How big?
I mean, we can get bigger, but what kind of community do we want to live in? What kind of services do we want to be able to supply to our community? So, we can get as big as we want. We can build out as far as we want. I think the capacity is there. The way the conversation should be is, how big do we want to be, and what kind of community do we actually want to live in?
Can I add just one more thing? One thing that would impact is our schools. So that more growth, we would have to have more schools to be able, so that teachers like Yasmin don't have to have huge classes.
I guess my question, like Devin's, how big do you mean big, right? And with schools, it's with the state funded. There is a levy, and there's already state that kind of determines the size of the classroom we get. But also, when we get big, and that also, if you look at Pasco, that has been building schools, I think once a year or every 6 months they've been building schools. And so realistically, how fast can we build? I know, at least for kinder data, we've been getting less kinder kids actually registered in Walla Walla. So then average, we normally get about 500 kinders a year, and for the past 2 to 3 years, we've only been getting about 400. So our population might be growing a little, but there's no kiddos coming in. There's less. So that's definitely a structure and a conversation to have of how big and what does the public want, and how big do they want to be? Big as Seattle, big as Tri-Cities, big as Spokane, big is just that's a beautiful adjective, so we have to look into that.
I'll try to be quick. I think growth is happening, and it's going to happen. I think what we have to decide is whether we're going to seek smart balance about that growth, or if we're just going to pretend like it's not happening, or sit on our hands and act as if there's nothing we can do. I believe that the caution has been more towards less growth. I think that there's been a lot of caution towards that because there's this idea that there's a trade-off between growth and character, and that like with growth you risk losing some character of a small town, Main Street America, the charm. I think that's valid. I think that there is another trade-off that we've ignored for the last 10 to 20 years, which is affordability, and that when you undershoot that balance, it ends up having a similar negative effect on the character of the town when the local people are struggling to live here and to afford to live here. So I think we can rebalance as we are growing, and where it ends, I don't have a very good answer for that, but I do think we can do a better job balancing as we do grow.
Okay.
I agree with everybody.
Okay. Go ahead, ask your question.
It's a little off topic, but who are some of your heroes, and who are the people that you've been inspired by that might inspire you to get on city council?
Well, I suppose you begin with family. Quite naturally, I was very blessed in my family and my upbringing, particularly with my grandmother and her core values. My dad was in the service. My grandfather was in the service, both of them for careers. And I followed in their footsteps. So obviously, either I was really stupid or I had some good models. I like to think the latter. Although my wife would argue with that sometimes. But I've had some of the most incredible experiences, particularly growing up in high school and college with teachers and professors that completely changed the direction of my life. The names wouldn't mean anything to you, but suffice to say these were people that aimed me in directions that I would have never thought about, that have, I believe, served me very well. Here in the community, I've had the good fortune of excellent role models, whether on the city council in some cases, or within the community. My neighbors, my former doctor from the VA who's in the audience, and so on. This is a community of good examples and good role models. It's a community that inspires, at least it inspired me, to want to be actively involved in the throb of our life. And that's, of course, what, in my view, local politics are all about. So I hope that's not too rambling an answer, and it was a good question. Thank you.
Okay. We're down to the last 5 minutes of the program for this evening, so if you could limit your answers to 30 seconds on this one. Give everybody a chance.
Great. Okay, I'll just go down the list. My parents are definitely heroes of mine. They've shown me from an early age that when you invest in the community tends to invest in you, and I've really looked up to that my entire life. Maureen Walsh is a huge hero of mine, especially, I just want to share that, like, relevant to politics and city council. I think she's a tremendous representative. I really would, if I could do a similar job, half as good a job, that'd be awesome. Warren Buffett, Jesus, and Russell Wilson.
Well, on that note, obviously traditional parents, parents that came from to Mexico when they were 16, 17 years old and with nothing literally, and they are here and being proactive and active citizens in this community, and they're amazing. My sister that's in here, all my siblings I'm the oldest of 5, so I have them to thank. And honestly, just going back, Emiliano Zapata, Tupac, of course, Jesus, we name Jesus in our, how I grew up, and I don't know about Russell Wilson, but I'll go with Earl Thomas. So.
Does John Stockton count? Utah Jazz, okay. Since the time I was a little girl, I listened to this man talk about service to his fellow man and to people within our church. And this man has been my hero all my life. Sorry, I'm getting choked up. But he's always talked about serving other people and how to do it, and how service to others brings joy into your lives. And he's my hero. His name's Thomas Monson, and he is wonderful, and he's dedicated to other people's lives and to encouraging and to helping and to taking care of the seniors and the widows and the people who tend to fall between the cracks. And he has been my hero all my life, so that's my hero.
I'll go with family as well, but also my wife, because she's sitting in the audience. A lot of the same themes come up. I want to highlight the professors that have educated me throughout my life and shown me how governmental structures can affect the lives we live, the space we move through, and how it can actually improve the lives of people in a community.
Number one, Jesus Christ. He's taught me so much about love, compassion, sharing. He's number one. Number two, my deceased parents. When I was growing up, I thought sometimes they were a little bit wacky. I found out later on in life how wrong I was. They were a great inspiration to me. And finally, my wife. She's been the most understanding person I've ever known, and I don't make any major decision without her input.
Those are all very good answers. Thank you for sharing. Folks, do you feel like you got to know these candidates better? Very good. Thank you. I want to put a plug in for the Chamber of Commerce. We've got the annual awards banquet coming up on December 6th. It'll be at the Marcus Whitman. We'll be recognizing the Firefighter of the Year, Teacher of the Year, Law Enforcement Officer of the Year, as well as Person of the Year. The colleges are all presenting awards that night as well. This year it's a holiday theme. It'll be Oh, the Places You'll Go, based on Dr. Seuss. So it should be a lot of fun. And we've partnered with the school systems. So College Place and some of the other schools actually are entering gingerbread houses through their culinary program. And so you'll see some really interesting structures made out of gingerbread. There will be a contest there for that. This will be a lot of fun. We encourage you to come on out and have fun with us and recognize some great people in this community. Are there any other special announcements I should make? Kelly? Okay. Yes, quarterly lunch. Coming up on 25th of this month. The 4 new leaders, with myself being the newest guy in town. I've only been here since July 10th, but Ron Williams, who's the executive director of Visit Walla Walla, Bonnie with Downtown Foundation, and Heather Unwin with the Wine Alliance. The 4 of us are doing a panel, and we're going to be explaining what our organizations do, the impact that we have in the community, and how we collaborate without stepping on each other's toes. So I invite you to go to the Chamber's website to get more details on that. Thanks again for everybody to come, and we look forward to seeing you on Election Day. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening.